The Song of the Sleeping Mountain. Chapter 1. The Silence of the Stream. The village of High Peak sat near the very top of the world. For generations, the people lived among the clouds. They breathed air that tasted like frost and pine needles. They were a strong people, used to steep paths and cold winds. But they were not made of stone, and they could not live without water. For 100 years, the silver veined stream had flowed down from the snowy caps above. It was clear, cold, and sweet. It watered the barley fields. It filled the village well. It was the heartbeat of High Peak. Then came the night of the Great Rumble. While the village slept, the earth shook. It was not a violent shake, but a heavy one, like a giant turning over in his sleep. When the sun rose, painting the sky in shades of apricot and violet, the silence woke the villagers before the light did. The bubbling sound of the silver vein was gone. The villagers rushed to the source of the stream. There, lodged tight between two cliff walls, sat a boulder. It was not just a rock. It was a mountain in itself, a jagged gray monster that had tumbled from the highest peak. It blocked the water completely. Behind it, the water began to pool, trapped. Below it, the stream bed was nothing but damp mud and drying stones. The strongest men in the village brought iron bars and heavy ropes. They pulled until their hands bled. They pushed until their shoulders bruised. The blacksmith, a man named Brahm, who could lift a horse, threw his weight against the gray stone until he collapsed, weeping into the dust. The boulder did not move. It did not even shiver. Days passed. The reserve barrels began to empty. The barley stalks turned yellow and bowed their heads. The children stopped running in the streets because they were too thirsty. A heavy blanket of despair settled over High Peak. The elders gathered in the town square, their faces long and gray. They spoke of leaving. They spoke of abandoning the only home they had ever known. But in the corner of the square sat a girl named Alara. She was not strong like Brahm. She was not wise like the elders. She was small and thin, with hair the color of dried wheat. In her lap lay a flute carved from the branch of an ancient willow tree. She did not speak of leaving. She was listening to the wind, and in the wind she heard a memory. Chapter 2. The Legend of Tusker. Alara remembered the stories her grandmother used to tell by the fire. They were not stories of warriors or kings. They were stories of the first days, when the world was young and magic still lingered in the valleys like morning mist. Her grandmother spoke of the guardians. They were creatures of immense size and gentle hearts who watched over the mountains. The greatest of them was a mammoth named Tusker. He had fur as thick as a winter forest and tusks that curved like the crescent moon. It was said that Tusker loved the music of the wind. It was said that he had not died, but had simply gone to sleep deep within the ice when the world became too noisy. The elders were arguing about which path to take down the mountain. Alara stood up. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the grumbling of the crowd. "I will move the stone," she said. Brahm the blacksmith looked at her with tired eyes. "Alara, you are a sweet girl, but your arms were like twigs. If 10 men cannot move it, you cannot." "I will not use my arms," Alara said. "I will ask for help." "Who will you ask?" cried the village chief. "We have asked the neighboring villages, and they are too far. We have asked the sky for rain, and it gives us only sun." "I will ask Tusker," Alara said. A ripple of laughter went through the crowd, though it was a sad, dry laughter. "Tusker is a nursery rhyme, Alara," said the chief kindly. "He is a story to make children sleep. He is dust and bones."
"He is spirit and memory," Alara insisted, gripping her willow flute. "And he sleeps in the cave of echoes above the frost line. I will go and wake him." The elders told her to sit down. They told her to save her strength for the long walk down the mountain. But Alara knew that walking away meant the death of High Peak. It meant forgetting who they were. That night, while the village fitfully slept, dreaming of cool water, Alara packed a small bag with dried apples and a flask with the last few drops of her water ration. She tied her boots tight. She tucked her flute into her belt. She looked at the dry stream bed one last time. Then she turned her face toward the snowy peaks and began to climb. Chapter 3. The Climb to the Frost Line. The journey to the Cave of Echoes was not a path for humans. It was a path for mountain goats and the wind. The air grew thinner with every step. It became harder to breathe, as if the sky itself was pressing down on Ilara's chest. By noon, she had passed the tree line. There were no more pines, only gray scrub brushes and lichen clinging to the rocks. The wind picked up. It howled around the crags, trying to push her back. "Go back, little girl," the wind seemed to scream. "You are too small. You are too weak." Ilara felt the cold seeping into her coat. Her fingers were stiff. Her legs burned. She wanted to lie down in the shelter of a rock and close her eyes. It would be so easy to sleep. But then she thought of Bram the blacksmith crying in the dust. She thought of the yellowing barley. She thought of the silence where the water should be. She took out her flute. Her fingers were clumsy with cold, but she brought the wood to her lips. She did not play a song yet. She just blew a warm breath through the instrument. The sound was a low, steady note. It was a sound of defiance. "I am here," the note said. "I am still climbing." She used the flute as a walking stick, then as a companion. When the wind roared, she played a high, piercing trill that cut through the gale. When the loneliness felt like a heavy weight, she played a gentle lullaby her grandmother taught her. Up and up she went. The sun began to dip, turning the snow to gold and fire. Finally, she saw it. The Cave of Echoes was a dark mouth in the side of the highest peak. Huge icicles hung from the entrance like the teeth of a giant. The air around it was still, disturbingly still. Ilara stumbled into the cave entrance. It was vast inside, a cathedral of ice and stone. Her footsteps echoed, tap, 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 sounding like a drumbeat in the silence. "Is anyone here?" she whispered. "Here, here, here," the cave replied. There was no mammoth. There were no bones. There was only ice and the smell of ancient dust. Ilara fell to her knees. The elders were right. It was just a story. She had wasted her energy, and now she would freeze here, alone. Tears, hot and stinging, ran down her cold cheeks. She curled into a ball. But as her hand brushed the floor of the cave, she felt something. It was not just stone. Carved into the floor, faint but visible under the layer of frost, were drawings, spirals, stars, and the shape of a great beast with curved tusks. "He was here," she whispered. "He was real." She realized then that the elders were wrong about one thing. Tusker wasn't a creature of flesh and blood anymore. He was a spirit of the mountain. And spirits did not wake up for shouting. They did not wake up for iron bars. They woke up for something that touched the soul. Ilara stood up. She wiped her tears. She warmed her flute inside her coat for a moment. Then, standing in the center of the great dark cave, she closed her eyes and began to play. Chapter 4: Awakening the Ancient. She did not play a complex tune. She played the song of the silver vein stream. Her fingers danced over the holes of the willow flute. The notes tumbled out like water droplets. She played the sound of the water rushing over smooth stones. She played the sound of the water splashing against the mill wheel. She played the sound of a mother washing clothes and singing to her baby. The music swirled around the cave. The echoes caught the notes and held them, layering them on top of each other until it sounded like a whole orchestra of flutes. Ilara poured everything she had into the music. She poured in her fear, her exhaustion, and her hope. She played until her lungs burned. She played until the cave seemed to vibrate. Deep in the back of the cave, a shadow shifted. At first, Ilara thought it was a trick of the light, but then the shadow grew. It detached itself from the wall of ice. Two lights appeared, soft and blue like distant stars. Ilara kept playing, though her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. The shadow took form. It was massive. It was taller than the village hall. It was translucent. made of mist and starlight and old memories. Great shaggy fur rippled as if in a phantom wind. Two enormous tusks, glowing with a pale light, swept down to the ground. It was Tusker. The spirit mammoth took a step forward. There was no sound of a footfall, only a deep, resonant hum that Alara felt in her teeth. He lowered his massive head until he was eye level with Alara. His eyes were ancient. They held the sadness of 1,000 winters and the joy of 1,000 springs. Alara lowered her flute. The echo of the music faded, but the feeling remained. "Great guardian," she whispered, "my village is thirsty. The water is trapped. We have forgotten how to ask for help, but I am asking now." The mammoth blinked slowly. He extended his trunk, which was like a coil of smoke, and gently touched the end of Alara's flute. A warmth rushed through the wood and into her hands. It was not a burning heat, but the comfort of a hearth fire. He understood. He did not speak in words, for words are small things invented by humans. He spoke in feeling. He told her that he had been sleeping a long, dreamless sleep, waiting for a song true enough to wake him. He turned his massive body toward the cave entrance and began to walk. Alara ran to keep up. As they stepped out into the twilight, the mammoth did not vanish. He glowed brighter against the darkening sky, a beacon of hope made of ghostlight. Chapter 5. The Descent. The descent was strange and wonderful. Alara was exhausted, but she did not feel tired. The mammoth walked ahead of her, and where his spirit feet touched the snow, the path became smooth and easy to walk on. The wind died down, respectful of the ancient king passing by. They moved quickly, gliding down the slopes that had taken Alara hours to climb. Below them, High Peak lay in darkness. There were no lights in the windows. The people were too tired and too sad to light candles. When Alara and Tusker reached the edge of the village, the dogs began to bark. But they were not barking in anger. They were barking in excitement. Doors creaked open. Pale faces peered out into the night. Then came the gasps. From the darkness emerged Alara, small and ragged, and behind her, towering over the rooftops, glowing with a soft blue luminescence, walked the mammoth. He was so big that he blocked out the stars. Bram the blacksmith stepped out of his house. He dropped his hammer on his toe, but he did not feel it. He fell to his knees, not in defeat this time, but in awe. "It is real," he whispered. The stories were real. The elders came out, clutching their robes. They looked at the spirit beast, and the years seemed to melt from their faces. They looked like children again, full of wonder. Alara walked straight to the dry riverbed, to the place where the massive gray boulder choked the stream. Tusker followed her.
The villagers gathered around, keeping a respectful distance. The light from the mammoth illuminated the canyon walls, casting long, dancing shadows. Alara turned to her people. "He is here to help," she said, her voice clear in the silence. "But he is a spirit. He has the strength of the mountain, but he needs an anchor. He needs us." "What must we do?" asked the chief, his voice trembling. "Believe," said Alara, "and push." Chapter 6. The Great Push. Tusker stepped into the dry riverbed. He approached the boulder. Compared to the mammoth, the rock did not look quite so invincible anymore, but it was still stone, and Tusker was mist. The mammoth placed his massive forehead against the gray rock. He placed his glowing tusks against the sides. He began to push. A low hum filled the valley. It was the sound of the earth vibrating. The boulder groaned. Dust fell from its sides. It shifted just an inch, but then it stopped. Tusker's light began to flicker. He was fading. The effort of interacting with the physical world was draining him. "He cannot do it alone," Alara cried. She ran to the boulder and placed her small hands against the cold stone. She pushed with all her might. Bram roared. He ran down the bank and threw his shoulder against the rock next to Alara. Then came the baker, then the weaver, then the children, then the elders. Hundreds of hands pressed against the stone. Hundreds of shoulders braced for the effort. Alara pulled her flute from her belt with one hand, keeping the other pressed to the stone. She began to play a new song. It was not a gentle song of water. It was a song of fire and earth. It was a marching song. It was a rhythm for working. The music wove through the crowd. It connected them. It tied their heartbeats together. It tied them to the spirit of the mammoth. Tusker's light flared brilliant white. He trumpeted, a sound like a thunderclap that shook the snow from the trees. "Push!" screamed Bram. Together, man, woman, child, and ancient spirit, they gave one mighty heave. The boulder did not just move, it surrendered. With a grinding tear that sounded like the earth splitting, the massive rock rolled. It tumbled once, twice, and then crashed out of the narrow pass and down into the valley below. For a second, there was silence. Then came the roar. The water of the silver vein, freed from its prison, surged forward. It was a wall of white foam and dark water. It rushed past the villagers, splashing their boots, soaking their hems. It filled the dry bed, swirling and dancing, singing its own song of freedom. The villagers cheered. They hugged each other. They scooped up the water in their hands and drank. It was the sweetest, coldest water they had ever tasted. Alara did not drink yet. She looked for Tusker. The mammoth was standing on the bank. He was very faint now, hardly more than a wisp of smoke. He looked at Alara. He raised his trunk in a silent salute. Then, as the first light of dawn touched the peaks, he dissolved. He became the mist rising from the water. He became the light on the snow. He returned to the mountain. Chapter 7. The Echo of Courage. High Peak was saved. The barley drank the water and stood tall and green again. The children ran in the streets with rosy cheeks. The despair vanished like fog in the sun. The boulder that had been pushed down the valley became a monument. Bram carved a picture into it, a picture of a girl with a flute and a great mammoth standing behind her. Alara was treated as a hero, but she remained the same. She still sat in the corner of the square, playing her flute. But she played differently now. She played with the confidence of someone who knows that magic is real, if you know where to look for it. The village changed too. They stopped talking about leaving. They stopped looking at the ground.
When hard times came, as they always do in the mountains, they did not despair. They remembered the night the water returned. They remembered that they were not just people living on a rock. They were the partners of guardians. Ilara taught the children of the village to play the flute. She taught them that music was not just for dancing. It was a language that could speak to the earth. Years later, when Ilara was an old woman with hair as white as the snow, a child asked her, "Grandmother, was it the mammoth who moved the rock, or was it the people?" Ilara smiled and tapped her willow flute against her knee. She looked at the mountain, then at the village, and finally at the child. "The rock was heavy with fear," she said softly. "The mammoth brought the hope, and the people brought the strength. But it was the music that bound them together." She paused, listening to the eternal song of the stream. "Remember this, little one. Even the biggest mountain will bow to you if you can find the voice to ask it kindly. And even the strongest spirit needs a hand to hold. We moved the rock because, for one moment, we all sang the same song."